Hello, good evening. This is me, Ruba Fatma, and today we are honored to have a visionary leader who wears many hats, Mr. Neville, a change maker dedicated to purpose driven innovation. Mr. Neville is currently the co founder of a well being initiative to soon to unveil the groundbreaking clock philosophy. He is also the director of ClearPath UK Empowerment Cross Sector Calibration of Real Social Impact and the founder of SDGs, a global movement that's redefining sustainability from the ground up. From well being and business strategy to marketing and social transformation, Mr. Neville brings a wealth of experience and had to every project he touched. So, let's welcome Mr. Neville to the Power Minute. Hello, how are you doing, Mr. Neville?
Good evening, Rhubarb. Thank you very much for inviting me on the show.
Thank you very much for your precious time. So, Mr. Neville, I would like to know about your personal journey and philosophy. So, can you please tell me how did your journey as a change maker begin?
Probably when I was born, if truth be known. Um, I came up from fairly humble beginnings. My parents were what you might call working class. I joined the Scouts, International Young People Foundation, which is now multicultural and also multi-gender. So the Scouts now are scouting for boys and scouting for girls, which is a fantastic transference of the scouting movement. I then went to school, I then went to university, and my first proper job was in cement. I joined a company as a graduate entrant, as was the time in the 1980s. There were lots of graduate entrant jobs going in the corporate sector in the UK, and I just became one of those statistics, if you like. And from that point in, I realised, although I was an accountant or trained to be an accountant, I realised I was somewhat different in I was very curious. And curiosity, actually, is we're not born with it, but we become curious when we're a child and we learn to walk. In some respects, the more curious we are, the faster we learn to walk and try things out. So curiosity actually was a really big factor in my development with regards to being successful. And then after 25 years working in the oil and gas industry for most of those years, working internationally with different cultures, fairly much the same systems, but different cultures, the same company. And I worked in the joint venture arena. I then left corporate life and retired when I was about 42 years old. Because I didn't want to go back into the same leadership management position where you weren't a single voice trying to make things happen, and you had to go through, if you like, corporate protocols. It happened to coincide with the 9/11, which I believe everyone has heard of. And in that year, I did, the prior year, I traveled nearly 500,000 air miles. So that was the type of job that I did at the time. And I decided that wasn't for me going forward. So I quit corporate life, didn't know what I was going to do, played a lot of golf to start with, and then ran out of people to play golf with because they were all still working. You know, I'm still only 42. Most people who work, my friends were still working. So, and then it was my wife that said, go and do something, get out of the house, because you're not using that brain of yours. So I went into coaching, I suppose you might call it, mentoring, and I helped several small businesses turn around in fairly quick succession. And I helped create a collaboration between 3 chambers of commerce, which were all independently inoperable, really. They really didn't have a sustainable future. I brought 3 together using, again, my oil and gas experience of collaboration, and even to this day, they're doing rather well, and they're acquiring other chambers of commerce to keep things moving along. So I very much believe in economies of scale. As the chief executive of MindFit, we talk about attitude change in the corporate arena. As you can see from the back, this word attitude, it begins with the MindFit logo, which looks like an A on the slant, so that's easy to remember. And it's all about developing a can-do attitude. That doesn't mean to say you know how to do it, because you probably don't. If it's new, you don't know how to do it. So AI is a big ticket item that's come into the world in the last 4 or 5 years. It doesn't mean to say you know everything about AI, but you're prepared to give it a go. And that's what a can-do attitude is. That's what we want our leadership to be. It's what we want our junior leadership to be, and it's what we want our students to be when they graduate from school, college, or university. Unfortunately, we don't teach attitude. We teach subjects, from maths to a foreign language to all the sciences to IT, and we pass exams and we think that's good enough. Sadly, it's not. So for the last 10 years, I suppose, with my CEO hat on as MindFit, we've been developing leadership around the world in the corporate arena. But at the same time, I've been testing and trialing what we do in other contexts. So MindFit was born out of the business context, and I wanted to ensure that to see if MindFit had elements that we could take into all other contexts. Well, in the past 10 years, I've taken it everywhere, from refugees that have been in refugee camps for 13 years, which is about the same time that they lived at home. So they've lost hope. So MindFit process has given them hope, re-established hope. To young people that can't really see where their future is, to graduates that doesn't understand that your degree won't get you a job, but your attitude and your soft skills will. And businesses will put up with the fact that you're not that technically capable, but you've got the right attitude to develop those skills. And again, with homeless or long-term unemployed, with startups, with scale-ups, and with literally exit strategies of companies that take their company global or just exit it by selling it on to somebody else. So I've managed to prove that what we do works everywhere, which is quite unique. And now the key thing is to open up the marketplace for everybody so they realize that when my good friend, I met my good friend Sir Ken Robinson nearly 15 years ago now, he basically said, just get some soft skills. Just get soft skills. And if you've heard of Ken Robinson, I suggest you go and listen to his TED Talk. It's called Our Schools Killing Creativity. It's the most watched TED Talk since TED's inception. It's a brilliant TED Talk. And I won't say much more about it because, you know, you really should go and look at it, because it will probably open your eyes as to how you keep creativity, in which case you become very curious. So that's an overview of where I've come. It's a bit of a snippet overview because I get, as you introduce me, I do get involved in lots of different things around the world. One of my pet subjects currently is Sustainable Development Goals. If anyone has heard of the United Nations 17 goals, they will know that they're not succeeding. And the reason they're not succeeding is because of one goal that's been missed, or actually one assumption that's been made, and that assumption is what we call SDGZero. And the reason we call it SDGZero is you can't do any of the others if you don't do SDGZero. So it's literally a development program for people to develop a can-do attitude and an entrepreneur capability. Because the world needs entrepreneurs, as we all know. We need new things to happen. We need change. And all of your young people within your academy, with your education system, the future is not me. My future is to pass on as much knowledge and capability to people around the world as possible. Is there a secret? No. Is it hard work? Probably. Can anyone do it? Absolutely. And it's as simple as that.
Amazing. So, how do you define success personally and professionally?
It's changed over the years. Um, as I said, and I spent nearly probably 25, if not 30 years, even when I left corporate life, I was still involved as a consultant. So for 30 years, success was always key performance indicators. Are we going to achieve what we project? So is the forecast right? Are we going to get the return on investment that we're looking for? So success was all majority of times was evaluated in financial terms. But financial terms, you also need, operational excellence. So the two go hand in hand. And it's the success of the projects at the time were quite simple. Did we come in on budget and on time? Because if you've defined what on budget means and on time, you've already created the return on investment criteria. So throughout my corporate life, it really was, are we doing what we say we're doing in a financial context? Now, when I left corporate life, I was seen as a project guy. So people mattered, but actually the project mattered far more. And indeed, when I took any psychometric test, as most people do, I actually was 90% project focused, 10% people focused. The reality of life is, without the people, you've got no project. So when I left corporate life, it wasn't that I realized there was more to success than just financial issues. It was actually more about how successful is the team? How are each individual members of those team growing? Am I a leader? What does success look like as a leader? What do people see success looks like if I'm their leader? So I created, with my co-founder Graham Williams, we created a company called MindFit, and that was evolved out of Sir John Whitmore as team coaching back in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s, and they were very focused on the corporate arena. Very senior executives would go on their programs, and they did team coaching even before team coaching was a term. So in the 80s and 90s, they weren't coaching individuals, they were coaching the team. And that's really where we should be in coaching today. You coach the team directly, and indirectly, you'll be coaching the individuals along the way. But it's about the team performing. And MindFit actually gets the best out of the team. And if we were to define, we're big on definitions, So what's the purpose of leadership is a good question. How do you define leadership? And if you Google it, if you look it up, if you read all these leadership books, they don't really define it very simply and succinctly. I call it fairly easily in the ability to get the best out of you and the team. So if a leader or manager is doing their job brilliantly, they're getting the absolute best out of the team and the individuals and themselves. And that's really what leadership should be about. So we look at things fairly simply. How you create leaders, that's a different discussion, okay? But if you define what leadership is, just like if you define what education is, what's the purpose of education, then we've got a good chance of actually solving what the purpose is there for. So let's look at education. When I went to school, which was a long time ago, back in the 60s and the 70s, when I went to primary and secondary school, my teachers would have all told me, get a good degree, get a good job, because that's what they believed. So education became certificate based. The better the certificate, the higher the quality of the certificate, the better job you're going to get. Now, that contract was never written. No employer would say, we take on the most technically competent candidates. An employer would say, we look at technical competence, we look at interpersonal competence, which you might want to classify as soft skills and leadership, but we also look at the individual's attitude to work. Do they turn up on time? What does on time mean? Does on time mean 5 minutes before they're supposed to start, or at the time they should start? So this is about your personal behaviors, your personal attitude to work. And what we found over the years is that because that's not taught, you can't assume that everyone understands it. So if you like, we sort of need a finishing school. But a lot of this is working out what's the purpose of education, why do we educate people? And every government will say, because we want the best people educated in our country to contribute to the national product, the gross national product, GNP, which is, it's a great principle, but very rarely happens, especially today, because people get qualified and they find jobs overseas. So you're not actually contributing to your national product, you're actually contributing to somebody else's. And that's fine too, as far as I'm concerned. You know, you've done your job. There's enough people that are going to stay and contribute that you don't have to worry about the few that leave. So it's an interesting journey for everybody. But the key to success to me today is having the right attitude, having sufficient technical skills, and equally having the right soft skills. Being able, as we're doing here, being able to communicate, not to be afraid to go on the TV and say what you mean, what you feel. Because I expect there's a lot of people listening to say he doesn't know what he's talking about. And that's fine. You know, I'll quite happily have a discussion with you if you really want that to happen. But you don't need to trust me. The evidence is out there. If you want a good job with an organization, you need to have sufficient technical skills, the right attitude, and soft skills. And in some respects, it's a third. But you will find out if you ask anyone in business, any entrepreneur that's prepared to say it to camera, they will say, I'll take someone on that's got the right attitude far more than I will take someone on who's technically competent that's got a poor attitude. You can always teach technical skills. You can't teach common sense. Well, you can, but it's hard. We do it. You can't teach attitude. Again, you can, but it's hard, yet we do it. And you can teach soft skills, how to communicate, you know, how to be numerate, how to be literate. You can teach all those because a lot of them are technical and soft skills. But the soft skill part is you've got to go and practice. And that's where a lot of people don't. They'll read a book on communication and they say, all right, I've read that book, I'm a good communicator. It doesn't work like that. You know, you have to go and prove it. And it's a bit like being in school. You know, your teacher gives you homework to prove that you know what you've just discussed. And if you get an A star, it's great. You know what the homework's about. If you get a C, well, you must do better. So there are some characteristics of success that we take in our stride. But the real success today, if I can get one message over in this discussion, the real success is have the best attitude, volunteer for everything, go and get experience, don't expect to be paid for it. Go and do a good job somewhere and get the soft skills that you need. Because technical skills, if you've not got them, the right company will help you get them. They'll train you. Now, remember, I left university with a bachelor's degree, a maths degree and an economics degree. I didn't leave university as a qualified accountant. And the company I went with actually paid for my accountancy qualification. I provided the time and effort. They paid for my opportunity. So companies will pay for the right people. And the right people have got a great attitude and huge soft skills because they're the future leaders. And you've only got to look at who the leaders are around the world. Who are the people that are making common sense? Not the ones that are shouting and screaming, and maybe presidents of countries that are doing things that just to make themselves look good. The ones that are doing really well are making their organization look good. You have to go a long way sometimes to find those people, but they're there. So I hope that sort of explains what I see as success. But what do you see as success?
Punctuality or discipline. If we have discipline in our life, so I think this is the success of our life.
Yeah, you're absolutely
Discipline is
right.
the
Discipline, being regimented, doing things that there is this thing in psychology they call unconscious competence. So in other words, you do things automatically because they're right. It's a habit. But what if they're not right? When are you going to change? And the only way you do that is to be consciously competent to make the change, do that conscious competence enough time to make it a habit. When it becomes a habit, it goes into your unconscious memory. So it becomes muscle memory. So you know that if you shout at people as a teacher, that's really not a smart thing to do because they're not listening and you're shouting at them and you're not really engaging them. So what you've got to do is stop shouting and replace it with something that's really positive and helping them move along. And Rubab, it's as simple as that. I mean, I'd love to make this really complicated and look like a massive guru in the world, and you only have to come to me to get to know how to do this. No, it's not. It's not true. The psychologists and the neuroscientists are proving it. Common sense, make it your common practice. If you need a bit of help up front, that's fine, but don't always ask for help that you can do yourself. You might need help to start. That's absolutely fine, but you won't need help to go forward.
Oh my God, your words have too much power, and I'm just what can I say, that out of mind. You are saying out of the box. It's really amazing that you are sharing your experience and about the leadership skills. As a part of Rehan School, which is world first artificial intelligence school, what we are giving to the students, we are giving leadership skills. How can they become a good leaders in the age of 8 years, 9 years, 10 years? We are focused on leadership skills. So they are doing independently. We don't have teachers in our school. We just have facilitators. We can just facilitate because they are learning from AI by using the different apps or different AI apps. But we focus on leadership skills. So this podcast is really, really helpful for myself and as well as all my students. If you give the opportunity to do podcast with my students, they will get more knowledge because you're amazing. Your words have power. You can change the mind easily with
It, it,
strong and positive vibes.
it is about a language, and it's like AI is a new language. Okay, it's using big, you know, big data, using other languages to put all languages together, creating a new language. That's creating a solution. We need to change the narrative. The thing I like about what Rayhan started and what he continues to do is, as you said, you're not teachers, you're facilitators. Now, in the English dictionary, okay, that I would refer to, the word facilitator is a long way from the word teacher. But if you look at the explanation of those two terms, there's a lot in common. And I say this a lot in the coaching world. You know, you need to really understand exactly what hat you're wearing, because you can be a coach, you can be a mentor, you can be a support, you can be a counselor, you can be an advisor, you can be a friend, you can be a teacher, or you can be a lecturer. But when you pull all of those pieces together, you need to know what you need to be for the person you're talking to at that time. If they need you as a mentor, then you're actually the answer, and you're imparting advice for them to explore the answer in their world. If you're acting as a coach, you may know the answer, but you don't tell them. You ask them. You ask them to explore what they're doing. And that is the fastest way we can learn, by going and doing something ourselves. So going in a direction, not knowing where you're going to end up. Because there is this thing in psychology it's quite a complicated term, but basically it means you end up where you look. So Edward de Bono said, think outside the box. A lot of people will say, get outside your comfort zone. My advice to everybody is, don't have a box and don't have a comfort zone. If you go and do something you've already done, you won't learn anything. So go and do something you haven't. So if you've always used ChatGPT for AI and you haven't used DeepSeek, go and use DeepSeek. Do something different. That gives you the courage to go and be curious to do something else. Because if we're not curious, we're not creative. If we're not creative, we're not going to be innovative. If we're not innovative, we'll create the same pencil, the same pen, it'll just look slightly different. And we've got enough pencils and pens in the world. We don't need another pencil and a pen. What we need is innovation. We need people to teleport their knowledge here to someone else sitting across the table without saying a word. And that's possible. We know it's possible. Elon Musk is, implanting things in chips in people's head that he calls BrainLink, which is pretty close to Starlink, which we all know that he's created. And that actually will get people to think in a different way. What are we doing? We're creating robots. So I'm not really proposing that we all have a chip in our brain. What I'm proposing is that we use our brain, which is the hardware, and we change the software. Just reprogram ourselves. We do that through reading, we do that through writing, we do that through videoing, through networking, through conferencing, through listening to podcasts. Whatever you can do, because it has to be right for you. I can tell people exactly what they need to do, but actually, what's the point If they don't think they believe in it, they won't do it. So one of the core elements of what we do at MindFit is that we get people to understand the psychological equation. And again, I paraphrase it, I make it simple. Our experiences and our beliefs form our attitude, and our attitude in action is our behavior. So if our behaviors are wrong, we'll get a bad result. If we believe the Earth's flat, then we won't get on a boat and travel to the other side of the world, because we're frightened of falling off the end of the world. Now, there still are people that believe the Earth is flat, by the way, despite the fact all technology, all the science, looking at where the sun goes, where your shadow is, etc., etc. Despite all of that evidence, people still think the world is flat because their beliefs are stopping their progress. And the only way to change your belief is to challenge it. In maths, they would say, prove the opposite. So if you believe something, but you don't believe something else, try and prove that something else is right. There's no point in you proving what you believe is right, because guess what? You believe it, you're going to find ways to prove it. But go and prove that the alternative is right. And that's the way you change your belief. So all of the climate scientists out there that are saying, oh my goodness, the climate's changing, we've got global warming, we're all going to die, etc., etc. There's just as many people that don't believe in climate change that do believe in it. So it's not an issue of having the technical knowledge thrown at you. It's actually challenging your own beliefs. And if you change your beliefs, you change what you do. There's a great book called Who Moved My Cheese? Short book. In fact, if you go onto YouTube, I think there's a 14-minute YouTube animation. It's not perfect, but it says enough. So Who Moved My Cheese by Dr. Spencer Johnson. Very easy book to read. It will take you about an hour and a half, even if you're not a very good quick reader. But there are bits in that book that basically really will change the way you go forward. And one is, if you change what you believe, you change what you do. And it's as simple as that. So yeah, I'll happily impart. I don't really want to impart knowledge, because it's not knowledge, really. I'm not really teaching anybody, facilitating anybody. I'm just suggesting to people, go and do something different to what you've done it, and find out whether it works, how happy you were doing it. Did you get a kick out of it? Did you get a buzz? Has it actually proved that what you're currently doing is the best way to do it? Or does it prove a small change, actually you'll get a better result? So it's literally have one plan. Plan A, start with plan A, but be flexible, adaptable, adjustable, whatever you want to be. Just manipulate plan A. Don't have plan B, C, and D, because I say this to everyone around the world. If you have to carry more than one plan in your brain, you've got a problem, because you never know which plan you're on. So if you just have one plan and adapt to what happens when it happens, and change that plan, that's the way to be. Don't have plan B ready to come in, because you're always eager to bring plan B in, where plan A actually could be working really well. But because you've thought about plan B, plan C, plan D, you're going to bring those things in, and you'll just get really confused, because they won't work. They never were intended to work. So have a plan A and be flexible.
Amazing. So, Neville, how do you see, as we are in the era of AI? So, what do you think, and how do you see AI reshaping purpose-driven leaderships in the next decade?
It's It's a difficult question to answer, because even in the corporate world that can afford to put projects in with AI, spend lots of money, because they're results focused, they're return on investment, they've got shareholders. Even in that world, they're struggling. They're struggling to incorporate AI. And the reason they're struggling to incorporate it is because they don't understand it. They see it as an opportunity to save money long term, an opportunity to reduce staff numbers. So they're looking at what the outcomes are before they're actually understanding really what AI can do for them. And we've seen this in the past. In the I remember when Microsoft launched Windows 1, 2, Windows, not 365, but Windows in the mid 1980s. So for all of those IT technicians that used to work with the dot prompt and knowing a huge language about how to get the best out of a dot prompt, we moved to Windows, which allowed me, most people like me, to go in and use things like spreadsheets straight off, Word documents straight off. WordPress wasn't even thought about then. And a lot of the products that were around at that time have disappeared. And we've evolved, quite rightly too. But there was a big expectation at the time that it was going to save lots and lots of jobs. And the answer is yes, it did. But all of those jobs were displaced by IT jobs that we needed to be able to run the infrastructure, to keep our PCs and our networks running. So I see the next 10 years, perhaps 5, if you can look that far, as soft skills, interpersonal skills, leadership that you're not going to rely on AI to do. AI may be a decision facilitator for you, but it's not a decision maker. If it becomes a decision maker, you may as well get rid of the board. So that's not going to happen. So it will be a facilitator to the future, a resource you could use, but will it displace leadership, interpersonal skills and attitude? No. Not until we get a robot that can mimic you and me. And the reason they're creating robots that look like you and me is because that's acceptable. But if you've got robots working in an organization and there's no one else around, what's acceptable? You don't need to look at another robot. They could just be a program running in the background. As some of the better sci-fi directors have already put movies out there. I, Robot, it was an absolute classic. Before that, you had Robbins doing mimicking a child or replacing a child, and we just don't know what's in the future. But the thing is, what it won't displace is good leadership, good soft skills, and good attitude. The robots will do the technical bit, but for decision making, maybe 90% of the decision making will be done for you, but that still means 10% is yours. So if you haven't got the right attitude and you haven't got the right soft skills, you're actually not going to be employable, because a robot will take your job. But frankly, you have to ask everybody, do you want to do a job a robot can do?
So, Mr. Neville, in the end of this session, I just want to know that what advice or what important things you would like to share from your experience or from your life, from the youngers or the beginners or the or the students, they are starting their journey towards leadership skills. So what advice you would like to give our audience?
Well, a very good friend of mine, who was the general manager for Gillette in Pakistan many years ago, um, he wrote a chapter in the book Everything You Should Have Learned at School But Didn't, which Rayhan also wrote a chapter, which is still in circulation. If anyone would like a copy of the book or a chapter, please let you know, Rubab, and we can share that to people. It's not a problem. But he said his advice and my advice will be the same. Volunteer for everything. Have the right attitude to go and volunteer for something that someone else knows they need. So if you've got a job and someone asks you to do something that you've never done before, say yes. Don't expect any additional money for it. What you can expect is a lot of hard work, but you're the one that's actually getting the benefit. So you're actually paying it forward, because at the end of you volunteering for something, you will be that knowledgeable person, that person that's actually come up with a result, that person that actually, it might actually change the fortunes of the organization. But more importantly, it will certainly change your attitude to the future. So volunteer for everything, you know, and the younger you are, volunteer to help around the house, volunteer to wash the car, volunteer to clear the yard, you know, because as you said, Rubab, it's about discipline. And that volunteering will build discipline. You won't actually say, oh God, Toby, it's going to take me an hour to clean the yard. Well, challenge yourself. Try and do it in 45 minutes. See how good you are. You know, make it a game, because games are fun. And if you're winning at the game, you're going to be smiling. And if you're losing at the game, you put more effort in. So I say you can do so many things. You know, when I first started as a governor at schools in the UK back in about 2006, so we're talking 20 years ago, I would tell the sixth formers, the year 12 and 13, I would say the best job you could go and get is a job at McDonald's, because you will learn everything there is about teamwork and customer service, because McDonald's have a great training program, and they still have today. So if you can get a job, go to McDonald's. And by the way, it's really tough to get a job at McDonald's, because they don't recruit on technical capability. They recruit on soft skills and attitude. And it's as simple as that. You know, they'll train you, you know, how to be a good server, how to flip hamburgers, you know, if that's really what, you know, you want to do. So you want to be a cook, they'll teach you how to cook. You want to be a server behind the counter, you want to be someone cleaning up. It's a great training program. And I find a lot of people in the UK, in universities in particular, they will look down on getting a job in a restaurant, because they think it's below them. They don't think they're going to learn anything. They don't think it's going to be of any use to them going forward. What it does do is it creates personal discipline, patience. You recognize there are lots of different people out there with different attitudes, and you need to adapt to all of them, because ultimately they're the paying customer. So you will learn so many soft skills by going and working in a restaurant or in a fast food arena. Those soft skills are transferable. I don't expect that 10% of the people that go from university and do these outside jobs to earn money to be able to go to university, I don't expect 10% will actually stay in the sector. So they won't be in hospitality, they'll go somewhere else. But I'll guarantee that the 90% that go into other sectors have learnt from the process. So that's my advice. Volunteer for everything. Find a job that is really going to test and create your soft skills, challenge you, and it'll improve your attitude.
Thank you, Mr. Neville, for sharing your time, experience, and vision, and to our global Power Minutes community. So I'm really, really thankful what you discussed and about the each and everything. And the amazing thing which I like most about the leadership is because it's really spark my eyes, spark my mind. This is just out of the box. So thank you so much from my heart and from the Pakistan. Thank you so much, Mr. Neville, and I hope that you will also connect with my students. It will be a good opportunity for all of the students to connect with you and do podcasts regarding the leadership. So, what do you think about it? Are you Will you be available for them to give your precious time?
As I said to you in our conversations on LinkedIn, individual one-to-one is really hard for me because I have a very packed schedule. So it would be a hit and miss to say yes to one and no to 10. So what I'm going to suggest is, if we do this, then we do it as part of a team development. So rather than a one-to-one StreamYard or presentation, I become the facilitator, where maybe 10 of them get together and we jointly they ask a question and we jointly come up with a solution. That's the way they'll learn, because they'll learn together. As I say, individually, I am quite time barred, and it would mean that I just put a pin in a piece of paper and find one name and I say yes to you and no to 10 others or 100 others, because all of your students need it. And the way that they can benefit from it is if we create this online classroom where they all come together. So I've done it before on many occasions. It works really well because they all coach each other. And when I'm not there, they still are. So, as I say, I'd happily do that, but it would need to be in a group type context.
Sure, I will send you a request from my heart, deeply request, and I will arrange a session with all of them, and I will connect you if you allow me. So thank you so much, Mr. Neville. Take care, and thank you so much, and lots of love from Pakistan and also from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Enjoy.